energy optimization and technology customization to provide economic renewable energy solutions by developing and nurturing a network of entrepreneurs. Dr. Solanki has been referred to as Solar Man of India by many leading Indian newspapers like the Times of India, The Hindu, and India Today. Following Gandhian ideals, he has coined the word energy Swaraj, and his work in this field has earned him the title of Solar Gandhi. His Energy Swaraj movement is a stepping stone towards energy access, energy sustainability, and climate change mitigation. In this talk, he will be giving us an insight into the fantastic topic of energy Swaraj. So, with no further ado, I will call upon Dr. Solanki to deliver the talk. Thank you.
Thanks, Premanshu. I'm really happy to be talking to all of you on this particular topic,
Yes, sir.
which is of my interest. Let me share my screen. All right. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I think the request was to talk about the solar technology, particularly, but I thought it is even more important that people who are listening, understands the sustainability and what is the core contribution that can make life on the planet sustainable. And as I'm working with the committees in the rural areas, also doing research in the labs, working with the government on policies, and as an entrepreneur. So, and also last year I visited the world as part of my Gandhi Global Solar Yatra. I went around the
Mhm.
world, and we also made some Guinness World Records. So when we combine all this thing, um, then I feel that the world as a whole, or most of the people in the world and in the country, do not even understand what sustainability is, and and therefore I would like to say that no, actually we know nothing. I mean, this is how the world stands today in my understanding, that actually doesn't know. And you know the the Rishi Vyas, right? Everybody knows Rishi Vyas or Ved Vyas. So the Ved Vyas was very interested in learning, the knowledge. He really wanted the knowledge, and he did a lot of tapasya. And the Mother Nature was kind of happy with his tapasya. He said, "Okay, fine. Ask what you want." He said, "I want knowledge." So Mother Nature took hold his hand and took on the mountain of knowledge and asked Rishi Vedvyas, take as much as you can. And Vedvyas could actually take only four big books in his hands, and those four books are nothing but the four Vedas. That's why Rishi Vyas become the Vedvyas. But what I want to tell you that the entire mountain of knowledge, the Ved Vyas could only pick up those four Vedas, which itself is so huge and humongous that it takes several lifetimes to understand Vedas. And from that context, I can now say that the way we are acting in this world and behaving, I think it is very clear that we know nothing, or we know very little thing, and that's why we keep making mistake. As per the scientific knowledge, that whatever human mind can comprehend and develop, which appears to be true at one time, but it is false at other time, right? Once upon a time, the green revolution was a great thing. Now today, opposite of green revolution, going organic is a great thing, right? So which means that whatever we did that time, or science we know, we're actually not a perfect science. And there are many things we once upon a time felt that, you know, getting, allopathic medicines are great thing, but now we say no, Ayurvedic medicines are actually better. So therefore, our understanding or the capacity to understand is so little that we invariably make a mistake in our planning, thinking, and executing. So I hope today through this talk I would be able to bring you sense what in real terms sustainability is, and if you can understand what is sustainability is, then you can actually use appropriate technology to make sure that that our lives drives on. So I will quickly tell you about the world we live in, how the energy and climate change is related, what is our current status of the world, and understanding sustainability, and then I'll come to the energy Swaraj. So that is typically the flow of my talk would be. So let's start with this image. I'm sure some of you or many of you would have seen this. This is the image of universe, right? So each of this bright dot that you see here are nothing but the galaxies. Okay, and among the many galaxies, only one galaxy is ours, which looks like this. This is called the Milky Way galaxy, and within the Milky Way galaxy, there are billions and billions of stars, and only one tiny star is ours. Our tiny star is not one in the center, but it is actually somewhere down here, which is very tiny, our sun. And around the sun also there are many planets which are revolving, and one little tiny planet. Look at Earth, and these are the to the scale image. Look at the Earth, how small it is as compared to the sun. It is 109 times smaller. And around the Earth also there is a very thin blue layer where a human life is possible, right? Now, within this blue layer, everything that we know as a life exists. And we also know that within our knowledge that there is no other planet in the entire universe of millions and billions of stars and planets. There is no other planet that holds life. So, how beautiful, how precious it should be to have a place like this in the entire universe, right? It must be really invaluable. And within this planet, within this blue air layer that I have shown you, there is a beautiful life beneath, or there used to be a beautiful life beneath with the water, clean water, flora and fauna, nice dense jungles, beautiful blue rivers, and soil that could generate the food that nurtures us. So, and that is what it used to be. And why I'm saying it used to be, that it is not anymore. Why it is not anymore? Because one thing we have learned, that energy drives our life, right? And there are various parameters that makes a connection with the energy. For example, and these are the 17 sustainable development goals, or SDGs that we call. So the sustainable development goal, each one of them has a relationship with the goal number 7, that is called energy goal, or sustainable development goal 7, energy. So it has a relationship with the poverty, it has a relationship with the hunger, health, education, gender, sanitation, economic growth, all kind of thing that you can kind of categorize today around our life has a connection with energy. So energy is a major driving force of our life. Energy consumption can reduce poverty, energy consumption can reduce hunger, energy consumption can improve health, energy consumption can increase education. By the way, there are these three developmental parameters: the income, health, uh, um, GDP. All of them are related to the energy. So you can actually compare various countries by comparing these parameters. What is the per capita income? What is the per capita energy consumption? And you can connect with the income, health, education, etc. And you'll find that there is a very strong correlationship between energy and all the development parameters. So therefore, energy is invariably one of the very major driver of our life. And as a result of that, everyone around the planet, every country, every city, every town, every individual is trying unconsciously or consciously trying to consume more and more energy. However, the energy form that we consume is majority of that is a fossil fuel, right? About 80 to 82% of the primary energy, we call it, all the sources together, the energy that we need for cooking, transportation, electricity, everything combined is called primary energy. So about 80% or 82% of the energy of the world is being fulfilled by the fossil fuels, which is really bad, because what we are doing is we are kind of converting the carbon which is there beneath the soil, or in the soil, or beneath the surface. We are burning it out and converting into carbon dioxide. And what happens? Carbon dioxide goes in the atmosphere and it remains there. And people have been figuring out the lifetime of the CO2 could be as much as 200 years. So 100 to 200 years is the number of years the CO2 will spend in the atmosphere. Now, this is fine as long as your balance of the CO2 is maintained. So look at this. This graph is for 1,000 years. So of the last 1,000 years, most of the time the CO2 was in balance, which means that there was no net increase in the carbon dioxide. And CO2 is a greenhouse gas, and because it's a greenhouse gas, it results in a greenhouse effect, which increase in the warming. So higher CO2 means more greenhouse effect. In fact, our neighboring planet, one side, if you go to the left hand side towards the sun, the planet has higher CO2. As a result of that, it is very hot, 300, 400 degrees centigrade. I think the Venus on the right hand side has a less CO2 concentration as compared to Earth, and therefore it is colder. But the Earth is the only planet where the perfect balance of CO2 concentration existed. But in the last 80 years, 50 years, we have disturbed it tremendously. And now you can see that the CO2 concentration, this part, is rising exponentially, which is really dangerous because what it is doing is it is resulting in a global warming. And as a result of that, the average temperature on the surface has been rising over since 1950s, particularly, uh, and it is in rising and rising, which we can all feel. I don't know. I have been talking this about this everywhere on the world when I went around, and everywhere one can feel that there is something has changed. The weather has changed. It is not same anymore. I mean, today and yesterday in Mumbai, it was bright, sunny. I mean, it is very uncommon to have bright, sunny days during the monsoon times. So something has changed, and we do not need a science to figure out that something has changed. It is our everyday's experience. All right. So the climate scientist community says that because of the global warming, the frequency and the intensity of the abnormal event will increase. Frequency will increase and the intensity will increase. And 1 degree centigrade rise has already happened by now, and therefore we must limit to 1.5 degree centigrade, or ideally or well below 2 degrees centigrade. That is ultimate kind of targets that we have. And this is ultimate because it is estimated and expected that beyond 2 degrees centigrade, the global climate change will be irreversible. You will not be able to bring it back no matter what you do. After once it heats around 2 degree, then even all of us become saints and stop using carbon dioxide. We will not be able to reverse the climate change because the changes will be irreversible. All right. So it says that this graph was plotted in 2017, 3 years back. It says that, okay, somewhere here, can you see this graph? 1.5 degrees centigrade, about 2040. So at that time, around 20 years, we would be reaching 1.5 degrees centigrade, which means that we have 20 years to make sure that we do all possible efforts to limit the climate change. If at all we want sustainable life, human life, and the animal life on the planet. But nobody's following that. There was a very famous Paris Agreement in 2015. All countries agreed, but US got out of it. And many countries are actually doing a lip service and not really making the required contribution that is necessary to limit the global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade. As a result of that, look at this report. This report came on 8th of July, about 12 days ago. Look at what it says. This report is, by the way, very kind of uh, recognized body, World Meteorological Organization. This report says that there is a 20% chance that one of the next 5 years will be at least 1.5 degrees centigrade warmer than pre-industrial levels, but the chance is increasing with time. Can you imagine? Not 20 years. We do not have 20 years. We have just 5 years or 8 years or 10 years. That's it. Before the global temperature reaches 1.5 degrees centigrade. Now, why 1.5 degrees centigrade? Because it has a lot of impact on the sea level rise and as I said, the intensity and the frequency of the abnormal event. This summer, in Madhya Pradesh, I was, due to Corona, I was in Madhya Pradesh. In Madhya Pradesh, there was a hailstorm in summer, about 27th of April, almost middle of the summer. And that is okay, hailstorm can occur once in a while. But the hails, the size of that hails was as big as tennis balls. And recently, I think last week, I have released a video that the climate change is real. I don't know if you've seen it. If you're not, then go to the YouTube channel, that's Solar News and Knowledge, and you can actually see it. As big as the tennis ball, and what it did in the very short time, it destroyed all the houses in that area. It killed monkeys; they couldn't hide anywhere. Anything which was plastic was broken down because the tennis ball size hails falling from the sky was really devastating to actually see that. Look at this statement on the bottom, and this was on 16 July, 4 days ago. I don't know how many of you are following. The Siberia is going through the heat waves, and the Europe and US is going through the heat waves. Part of it. What this says is the temperature in Siberia have been more than 5 degrees centigrade above the average from January to June. This year we are talking, 2020, and in June up to 10 degrees centigrade above the average. Can you believe it? A 10 degrees centigrade above average temperature in any part of the world. For example, Mumbai is, let's say, 40, it goes to 50 degrees centigrade. Rajasthan is, let's say, 47, it goes to 57 degrees centigrade. How unimaginable events are this? And therefore, there's another report that came in, which is the United Nations Climate Change Corporation, I guess, which says that the CO2 emission actually is increasing at the rate of 1.7%. And this kind of level, which has been recorded 415 parts per million in the atmospheric concentration of CO2, last year was 415 parts per million. By the pre-industrial era concentration of CO2 is 280 parts per million. So from 280 to 415, almost 46-47% we have increased. And when anything changes by 46-47%, you know what is happening. So the cover page image shows the whole thing, that how the glaciers are melting, and such an event has not occurred in the last 800,000 years. So that is what is happening. Also, I would like to bring your attention that there is something called Earth Overshoot Day. And this is actually recorded in 2018. What is Earth Overshoot Day? Earth Overshoot Day is a balance equation. So whatever resources Earth can generate in 1 year, like air, water, soil, food, forest, whatever resources it can generate in 1 year, how many days humans are taking to consume it? And ideally, if you are in balance, 1 year of generation, we should take 1 year to consume. So ideally, the Earth Overshoot Day should come on the 31st of December. But look what is happening. We have disturbed the balance as early as 1970s. So from 1970s onwards, the resources that we consume is more than the capacity of Earth. And as 2017, humans have consumed the resources equivalent of 1.7 Earth. 1.7 Earth equivalent resources we are consuming, but we have only one Earth. So imagine what kind of stress we are causing to the nature, and it's terrible. And look at this data that I have collected, and how the per capita availability of the resource are declining. And the world population is increasing. The per capita land has declined. The per capita agricultural land has declined. The per capita forest cover has declined significantly. The per capita renewable fresh water resources available has declined. So every natural resource available to a human has been declining. And as a result, what we are doing, we are forcing the nature by the way of pesticides, fertilizers, these, that, to actually produce more, which is going to be trouble for ourselves. So because we do all this thing, because energy is a major driver, because we use fossil energy in fulfilling our needs, we have been messing up with the planet. And as a result, how does the current world looks like? I mean, look at this. Some of you may remember last year there was a Australian fire forest fire. It has happened in Amazon also, and right now I think many parts of Siberia are actually burning. Siberia is a cold place. Can you imagine? It is burning. Many parts of Siberia is burning because of the heat waves. And not a small area. There were about millions of square kilometer of area was under fire, and some 500 million animals are estimated to be killed in Australia alone. This is the image of Venice in Italy, Europe last year. The main city got flooded, not because there was a heavy rain, but it got flooded because the seawater came in. Those who know that the Venice is actually built on the canals. There are canals everywhere. There are more canals in the roads. But look at what has happened to the city, that the water level rose so much, and it took actually 4 or 5 days naturally to get the water out. Also, there was a heat wave in Europe last year, where in France, some area, the temperature went up to 45.8 degrees centigrade. I mean, those who are in India probably would recognize what 45.8 degree means. We kind of feel this kind of temperature in North India and in the deserts and the Rajasthan. But Europe, which is a cold continent, has experienced 45.8 degrees centigrade. Isn't it shocking? Look at this image. This image is of Middle East, the desert area. But what do you see? Snowfall. From the trees, you know that these are palm trees found in desert. But last year, there was a heavy snowfall in the desert area. This is Delhi, and you can see the kind of smog that was there last year and causing a lot of problems to the people, and unimaginable amount of the traffic jam. This is the image of the traffic jam in some Gurgaon highway, Delhi Gurgaon highway. So now you see that how terrible the world has become. In the desert area, there is snowfall. In the area where there is snowfall, there is a heat waves. Jungles are burning in the huge quantities. Consumption is increasing like a madness, and traffic jams in every part of the world. So therefore, in this context, how do we understand the sustainability in what it is? And we have been like a parrots, and I keep saying that the humans have been acting like a parrots. That we keep talking about sustainability from 1970s, 80s, 90s, but we, I think, never understood what sustainability is. And that's why I say we know nothing, because all our actions are actually damaging, and it is damaging for the human life only. Forget about anybody else. So therefore, we do not know, because we always work against the nature. So let us understand what sustainability is. And I think it is a very simple, in my view, the sustainability is making sure that whatever is generation is equal to consumption. That's it. As simple as that. For example, if you are earning a 50,000 rupees salary in a month, make sure that you only consume 50,000 rupees. If you are earning 30,000 rupees, make sure that you spend 30,000 only. But if your salary is 30,000 and you spend 50,000 rupees a month, you may survive few months, from borrowing here and there, but eventually you are going to break down, isn't it? As simple as that. So similar to that, our income should be equal to expenditure, our consumption should be equal to the generation. And if you are violating this law, we are creating problem for ourselves. Mahatma Gandhi told this in this 1932. What he said: we may utilize the gifts of the nature just as we choose, but in her books, the debits are always equal to the credits. There is no balance in either column. Absolutely no balance in either column. So you have to make sure that the generation is equal to consumption. He kept on saying that, okay, this was in 1933, almost 100 years back, 90 years back. He said, I suggest that we are thieves in a way. हम चोर हैं सब लोग. If I take anything that I do not need for my own immediate use and keep it, I thieve it from somebody else. I venture to suggest that it is the fundamental law of nature. Can you imagine that we are violating this fundamental law of nature as much as from the early development or the industrial revolution? Without exception, the nature produces enough for our wants from day to day, And if only everybody took enough for himself and nothing more, there would be no pauperism, there would be no poverty in the world. There will be no more dying of the starvation in the world. But so long as we have got this inequality, so long as we are thieving. If you are making people unequal, then we are actually thieves, and which is true for many of us. So, and Gandhiji, very nicely summarized it in one line. He says that earth provides enough to satisfy every man's need, but not every man's greed. In almost 100 years back, this man has understood what sustainability is all about. He has understood what nature is all about, and he told very clearly. And if you actually go into the details, what all he has told, very clearly, he told the Europe that, guys, you are doing something very wrong. We are all going to pay for it. And it has been there in the writings of Mahatma Gandhi that the kind of developmental model that Europe and US has followed was a flawed model. It was only to suffer at the later stage that we are seeing right now. So we can call it first law of sustainability. And because everything is finite in the world, air is finite, water is finite, land, soil, forest, everything is finite. And therefore, our consumption has to be finite. And now, because Gandhi was not a scientist like a Newton and Einstein, so he could not tell this thing in a scientific manner. But I think his understanding of the world as a whole was actually better than a scientist. And therefore, what I tried to say is I tried to kind of rewrite the Gandhian lines in the following, which is kind of a law. You can say it as a first law of sustainability. So we can say that in an ecosystem of finite resources, there can only be finite consumption. You know, we we cannot consume more because our resources are finite and we can consume only finite. But right now, what is happening? If anybody is having more money, he can spend as much water as he want. If people have money, they can buy as many cars they want. They can build as big house they want, which is actually blatant violation of the first law of sustainability. And also what we say, I mean, how we know nothing because our understanding has got completely screwed. This was the report of India Today when the economy was slowing down. He says the auto industry in the midst of severe slump, policy intervention to revive the sector and the economy at large are necessary to stave off the protracted crisis. And the image shown was this, right? So a lot of cars are actually being waiting to be sold off now. And the India Today called it crisis. The world is calling it a crisis. But is it a really crisis? And I look at, so when we look at the whole thing from a different angle, what is in crisis? Having a car not sold is a crisis, or having a car sold is a crisis? And whatever I have been telling you in this presentation so far, you can make out very easily that if we go by the data that we have seen, having a car sold is a crisis. But the whole world, the whole economics, and the whole policymakers, the whole government understands that having a car not sold is a crisis. And therefore, we are complete, 180-degree opposite in understanding of the sustainability. We do not understand the sustainability. The policymakers do not understand. In fact, when you listen to our finance minister and the prime minister, they keep saying that we need to increase consumption to revive economy. But increased consumption is increased pollution, is increased inequity, is increased violence, right? Everything is a problem when increased consumption. So you may sort out the economy on a short time, but on a longer time, you are going to create many problems. So that's why we have very skewed understanding of what sustainability is, and that's why I think people do not understand. Let me bring another quote from Gandhiji, and that will bring one more second law of sustainability I would like to bring. He said, I would categorically state my conviction that the mania of mass production is responsible for the world crisis. In 1934, he said that. Mass production mania, which we are still suffering from, is responsible for the world crisis. And the solution is when the production and consumption both become localized. The temptation to speed up production indefinitely and at any price disappears. That is what the mass production is all about. Produce. And once you produce, distribute, sell it. Even though people have to buy loans and take loans and do this, but but they want to push that forward. All the endless difficulties and problems that our present day economy system presents to would then come to an end. If you follow this model of decentralization, being local, then he said all the problems will disappear with this. And therefore, he very beautifully said, I do not want the mass production, but production by the masses is required. Production by the masses. And because people live in a distributed manner, we are not living on top of each other. I mean, we are living in metros, but that's a bad design. But in general, people are distributed across the world, and therefore, our production or the manufacturing should also be distributed. And when we distribute this, uh, there'll be an equity. Right now, mass production means unequal distribution. Right? You can only have one big factory, and once you have one big factory, there are only few stakeholders, 100 stakeholders, 500,000 stakeholders. So all the benefit of big factory goes to 100,000 1,000 people, 100 people. That's it. It doesn't get distributed equally, which creates inequity in the world, which creates a dissatisfaction, which creates violence, which creates all kind of problems. Migration, everything is a result of that inequity. So therefore, we can call a second fundamental law of sustainability as in an ecosystem of finite resources, which our planet is, in an ecosystem of finite resources, there can only be distributed production. You cannot centralize the production. And if you are going to do that, you are going to pay for that. And that is what is happening right now. All right. So that is, I think, in the summary, this sustainability is all about ensuring that production or generation is equal to consumption. Do not violate this law at any cost. And if you're going to violate, you're going to suffer. What I have been doing in my work at IIT Bombay is actually experimenting with this. And last year I also written a book on energy Swaraj with the subtitle "My Experiment with the Solar Truth." How solar solution, how energy solution should be. So we have been doing this project, and what we have been doing is we have been giving training to the local community about how to assemble, how to identify the components, how to repair the components, how to assemble the products and supply them. So we have been working at various levels. One of our most successful project was the solar lamp project, where now we have provided the solar lamp to 8.5 million households across UP, Bihar, Assam, Jharkhand, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Odisha, Chhattisgarh. Sorry, not Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh. So basically, a lot of places we already reached. Women, more than 10,000 women already employed in the project at various level, and they earn money out of it. So look at how beautiful the solution the local people assemble. They actually go and sell at subsidized cost to. That was our experiment. And then if there is any problem in the repair maintenance, they do that. They themselves repair it. So there's a confidence in technology. There is a skilling of India. There is a adaptability of solar energy solution. There is a benefit in terms of the education. There is a benefit to the local economy. Lots of benefits. Not only that, we have also given them training to do the installation of the complete home electricity system, and many of them are doing it. About there are 1,000 solar shops that are being run by the women. So women are running these shops and maintaining it. They are earning money from it, about 5 to 10,000. And let me tell you, this is all in the market mechanism. There is no subsidy involved of any kind in this. Um, Not only that, we have also helped them to go even one level higher and set up a local small manufacturing unit. So this is an image of a module manufacturing plant came up in Rajasthan, but the similar plants are also coming up or already there in Wardha in Maharashtra and in Gadchiroli, and also now being planned in Bihar and UP. So women have been running this plant. The CEO of the factory, which is a 2 megawatt manufacturing plant, the CEO of this factory is Rukmani Devi, who is only eighth pass, and she manages the entire show. So this program has been very successful. We have reached to 40,000 villages, 10 states, and many sub-districts in India. Many shops are running. A lot of people got trained. So it has been a very successful. We got also recognition from the Prime Minister many times. We also got the international awards and many Guinness World Records. So that brings the idea of Energy Swaraj. that energy Swaraj is nothing but a scenario where locals generate and consume their own energy needs using locally available renewable energy sources. Okay, so it's an energy by local for local. That's the whole idea of energy Swaraj. And fortunately, the technology has evolved tremendously. I have done my PhD in solar PV technology. I've been monitoring this field for about 20 years now, and the prices has come down tremendously. The efficiency has increased very, very significantly. In fact, solar PV is the only technology that produces the equipment very close to the ideal efficiency. Today, the commercial modules are available at 20-22% efficiency, while the ideal efficiency of silicon solar cells is only about 30%. I mean, look at the Rankine cycle in the thermal power plant. Those thermal power plants are running for more than 100 years, but the working power plant efficiency is only about 50% of the ideal Carnot efficiency. But in this case, we are very close to ideal. So what I'm saying is technology has evolved tremendously, and the cost has also come down significantly. So when we talk about energy Swaraj, the question comes in whether it is technologically feasible. And answer is yes. Some of you can actually look at my videos available on YouTube. What are the misconceptions people have in terms of efficiency of the cell module, space that it requires, maintenance, recyclability? All kind of questions are there, which are actually misconceptions rather than the real current day technology. So you can look at that. There is the economic viability because solar electricity rates have come down significantly at the rate about 2.53 rupees per unit at the large scale power plant, which is competitive as compared to the domestic electricity rates. Environmentally friendly, it is anyway there. Institutional doability, if you follow this model of energy Swaraj, where we be local, for local, buy local, then it can be done and we all can generate our own energy locally. And socially also it is accepted. So I believe that the viability of energy Swaraj has been increasing, and today it has come to a level that we can really rely completely on this. So last year, when we won this award, IEEE organized a global competition of empowering billion lives, and we have presented this idea of energy Swaraj, and it was a global competition. 459 teams took part, and we cleared all the levels. We were winner in the Asia region, but eventually we also won the global level award with the prize money of $100,000. So with that $100,000 as a prize money, we founded this Energy Swaraj Foundation, Energy by Local for Local, um, which is now trying to run a campaign where we are asking people to surrender electricity connection, right? So because now it is viable to um, uh, you know uh, be self-sufficient in energy, and therefore our campaign in the Energy Swaraj is surrender your electricity connection, go 100% on solar. Um, and but before we even go for Energy Swaraj, one of the model or approach, one of the approach before we go for Energy Swaraj, one of the approach that we should follow is what I call is AMG approach. So what is AMG? A is avoid use of energy as much as possible, even if it is solar energy. So as Gandhiji said, there is only enough on the planet for everybody's need, not for the greed. So even solar energy, if your house requires 4 air conditioning and you run all the 4 air conditioner solar, and then you say that I'm doing good job, is not right thing, because by the time you manufacture 4 air conditioner and put all the wires and cables and this and that, you have already consumed a lot of resources on the planet. And therefore हिंदी में कहावत है 900 चूहे खा के बिल्ली हज को चली. So that is not a great idea. So avoid use of energy even if it is from solar. For example, my house in here in IIT, we do not use air conditioner, we do not use refrigerator, we do not use geyser, and we do not use microwave, we do not use TV. A lot of things we do not use because we can avoid it easily. Second thing is M is minimize it. What does it mean? Use very efficient appliances so that you can minimize the consumption of energy. So avoid, you can reduce energy consumption by 30%. Minimize, you can reduce energy consumption by 30%. So if you reduce by 30-30, then remaining is only 30%. So the G is for generation. So you generate 30% energy, which you can fulfill all your needs. There are very efficient appliances available these days, where you can, for example, fans are available. We can which consumes one third of electricity needs. As 25 watt you can run. There are LED lights available. All kind of appliances you can run very efficiently. So we call our approach is AMG to avoid OMG. If you follow AMG approach, then you will avoid saying OMG. Oh my God, solar solutions are expensive. So I think once we go and achieve the energy storage, we will have many benefits. Sustainability of the human life on the planet, which is, I think, is increasingly becoming a threat to it. The livelihood creation will happen. The local economic strengthening will happen. We will get energy independence. By the way, India spends a lot of money in importing energy. We import coal, oil, gas, nuclear fuel, all kind of energy we are importing, which is not a great sign for any country that wants to be strong and powerful. So it will reduce our energy dependence. A local involvement will increase. Energy discipline will come, and we can actually make use of modern technology as well. So there are lots and lots of benefits of this. Last year, I traveled to about 30 countries as part of my Gandhi Global Solar Yatra, which has been an enormous experience, learning experience. We also conducted this event on 2nd October, where 9.25 lakh students got a training to assemble their own solar study lamp. And that was also a very successful organization. I don't know if you know my post few days back, where I said that I have taken a leave from IIT Bombay. Today is my first day of the leave, and I'm there on the leave at least for 3 years. What we are going to do is we are going to start Energy Swaraj Yatra to create Energy Swaraj movement. We are designing the solar power bus, and I'm going to go around in this bus, living inside the bus for several years, where we can go and talk to people as much as possible to tell them about how terrible situation we are in, and why it is important to adopt to the solar energy solution 100% immediately if we want a future of our children bright and without suffering, without scare. Otherwise, our children and their children will suffer. When will the new virus will hit? When will there be drought? When there will be a flood? When will be this? When will be that? All kind of events will keep happening, and they will live a scared life in the future. So therefore, if you want to save and make their future bright, we need to adopt to Energy Swaraj, and it is very essential part of the sustainability. All right. So with that, thank you very much. You can follow me on my personal page, or you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So that's it from my side. Thanks everyone. And if there are questions, I'll be very happy to answer.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll start now with the Q&A session. So we had floated a form a few days back. So we had got some good response on that.
Okay.
Should I start?
Please do start.
Yeah. So Sarthak, Hadwar, and Vikas have asked that what are the opportunities in a solar energy field and how one can grab them? What are the entrepreneurship opportunities under the umbrella of Energy Swaraj?
So basically, let me come out of my presentation mode. Okay, right. So basically, as I told, that Energy Swaraj is all about being local, for local, buy local, and which means that we would need lakhs and lakhs of entrepreneurs in operating in a local area where they can provide these energy solutions, not only provide the energy solution, but also sustain those energy solutions. Because as we say, Energy Swaraj, we are asking people to be independent of the grid. So sustaining and providing those solutions requires a skilled manpower. And I think many of people in whichever locality you are, anywhere in the world, this is a wonderful opportunity. What Energy Swaraj Foundation is doing is we are creating Energy Swaraj ashrams And these ashrams are actually located in the various academic institutions. For example, right now we are talking with IIT, IIT BHU, we are talking with the NIT Raurkela, and also various other colleges to set up these ashrams. So these ashrams are nothing but the solar incubation centers. And in these incubation centers, we are going to help them with the training, with the technology, with the supply chain, also with the marketing. What we are trying to do is we are trying to connect with the Bollywood, for example, so that we can promote this idea effectively that people should join Energy Swaraj, etc. So there are lots of opportunities to become an entrepreneur in the particular solar and renewable energy field, because energy is required to drive our life, and we need to go away from the fossil energy, which is 80% part of our life today. So therefore, I believe the scope is enormous to become an entrepreneur in this area. I hope that answers.
Hello?
Yeah, I hope that
Yes,
answers
sir.
the
So,
question.
on the similar lines, Rohit Yadav has asked, how can young students and startups impact? Sorry, sir, I guess your audio is not that clear. Like we
Okay,
are facing some bandwidth issues, I guess.
I see.
Hello?
Okay. Yeah, can you hear me now? Maybe I'll switch off my video.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead now.
Yes, sir. So,
Can you,
on the similar lines, Rohit, hello?
yeah, go ahead. Ask the question.
Yeah. How can young students and startups impact Energy Swaraj? Like, what are the challenges which are lying ahead to tackle?
Well, I think as
Like,
I
as
said, I think the opportunities are enormous, because we need to move quickly from the fossil energy based lifestyle to the renewable energy based lifestyle. At the same time, we need a lot of energy, so we need a lot of people to come into this. Now, the challenge is the policies of the government is a big challenge, because government wants to give free electricity now, and no entrepreneur can compete with the free electricity. So the policies of the government can be a challenge. Initial financing can be a challenge. Awareness to the people that something of this nature is required is also a challenge. So these are the challenge, but I think as we go in time, as people become more aware about the climate change and issues, I think these challenges will become less and less critical, and we should be able to promote solar energy or renewable energy in a very big way.
yes, sir. So, sir, this second question is by Mohammed Patel, Zaid Patel. So, what are your views on one sun, one planet, one solar grid plan? That is a plan rolled out by Government of India, which focuses on a framework for facilitating global cooperation, building a global ecosystem for interconnected renewable energy sources, which is mainly implied
Yeah,
to solar
yeah. I
energy.
think, as I said, we actually know nothing. So the problem
Yes, sir.
of the governments across the world is that our policymakers and all think that more technology will solve the problems. But if we have not understood from this presentation that what I have shown very clearly, that more technology is not the solution. Living in the sync with the nature is the solution. And more the technology you create, more the problem you create, and more difficult it is, more dependency increases, etc. I mean, look at the corona, for example. Had it been a localized economy, corona wouldn't have spread so much in the world. But because we are so much dependent, one thing affects everything else, which is a very fragile ecosystem that we have created for ourselves. And therefore, this one thing, one sun, one grade is really not a very smart idea. It is only the lack of understanding of the sustainability. People in the Niti Aayog and everywhere keeps talking about this thing, but it is clear cut as per the Gandhian philosophy, is a clear cut blatant violation of what needs to be done. And therefore, one of the things the entrepreneur needs to do is bring this awareness that, look, guys, I mean, it is very clear written on the wall. How can you do this? Look at what is happening to the climate. How can we do that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So, like, is it a far short plan by government to roll out this
See,
now,
anything,
or like in the
anything.
future also? Can it be sometime possible in the possible future? Like, or it is like quite not
See, what I'm
possible?
saying is, yes, it is possible, but what I'm saying is we should not do that. As I said
Okay.
very clearly, the not the mass production by masses is required, right? For example, the
Mhm.
recent inauguration of 750 megawatt plant in Rewa in Madhya Pradesh. It's a good thing, but it is not the great thing. In 750 megawatt, I would have created 10,000 people's job in if it has been a distributed generation with more efficient generation in consumption. I would have made the economy stronger. But right now, three people who got the contract will actually get most of the benefit of the installation, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So therefore, this centralization model itself is exploratory model. Either it exploits the nature or it exploits the people.
Mhm.
It is a short-term model. It doesn't actually look at the long-term implications of what will happen. And therefore, Gandhiji understood it 100 years back and said, this is not a good idea.
Mhm. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So should I ask the next question?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like as you also mentioned in your presentation that within few decades back, we have there is a problem of solar panel disposals, which can be a challenge for the future generation. So, what is your take on that issue?
That can definitely be a problem, but as I said, whenever we think of sustainability, the number one thing is avoid, minimize, and then only generate, right? If you are going to go business as usual,
Yes,
then we
sir.
are going to really suffer. So therefore, yes, panel also needs to be discarded at one point of time. But the good thing is the
Mhm.
silicon is a non-toxic material. All elements that goes in making a solar panel, like a glass, polymer, aluminum frame, all those are non-toxic material, and people have shown that this can be recycled. However, in the current situation, the volume of the panels to be recycled is really not much, and therefore, I believe that as the time goes and more panels get discarded, the recycling industry will also come up. So that has been demonstrated that not a problem, it can be recycled.
Yes, sir. So, sir, heading to the next question. Is
Mhm.
there any way to be associated with the Energy Swaraj Yatra? How can a working marketing and communication professional connect with this mission of Energy Swaraj? This is by Mansi Jadhav.
Yeah, so I have been posting. I said that I'll make a 6 postings. I have made a 4 announcement. Tomorrow will be the 5th announcement, where we are saying that, look, guys, energy Swaraj cannot be achieved by a policy, by a project, or
Mhm.
by any big organization. These are all limited. There are big companies, successful companies, startups, birlas, they could not do anything to mitigate climate change despite their scale. So whole idea is not to make a great policy, not to make a great foundation, not to make a great organization. What we need to do is bring public on board, and for that we need a movement. एक आंदोलन की जरूरत है. Without that, it is not going to happen. So when I go around in the yatra, what people and I, we are also going to float, and that will be my 6th announcement. That I'm going to do this yatra for. My plan is to do as almost 10 to 11 years till 2030, which is the Sustainable Development Goal timelines. So what people at a local area can do is you can become the coordinator, and we already floated a form on our website, which I'm going to announce tomorrow, that you can actually give your details, and you can become the intern for a while in your area. And when the yatra goes to your area, you can organize the yatra. And organize our yatra is not just one thing. There are some 7 8 things that will happen during yatra. We'll have small rallies. We'll have a lot of lectures. We'll meet with the people. We will felicitate people who are doing good job in a local area. we will also demonstrate. We are together with my bus. There'll be a truck that will going around with me, which will be having this house which can be assembled. So we are going to demonstrate people that how everything possible can actually run on the solar energy. So a lot of this thing will happen, and we would need many people to help us. Also, we would need intern who can actually do a small studies on a particular aspect. For example, somebody can study Siberia heat waves. So we are going to connect the many mentors with the we are going to connect many mentors with the interns, and some people can do the study, some people can actually become part of the entrepreneur, and we help them. There are many things that are there already on our website. So there are many ways young people need to join it, because it's not my future so much affected as the future of the young generation. And I believe that the young generation will understand this and will take a greater role in the energy Swaraj in the energy Swaraj movement.
Yes, sir. So, sir, heading to my next question. So, sir, you have been like felt that there is a gap between the social acceptance of the, like, for example, the solar lamps, as we talk
Mhm.
about. So,
Mhm.
what is your opinion about that? The solar acceptance by the rural population is also a big plays a big part in this thing.
He does play a big part, and the acceptance is, I would say, is not as great. The reason
Mhm.
being the kind of demonstration and installation of solar solution that has happened in the country has been very poor. For example, 70% of our solar street lights you will find non-functioning, because people have
Mhm.
not understood the technology or designed properly, and they have done a bad installation. And therefore, that becomes a demonstration model for everyone that how solar doesn't work. And that is why I got into the solar lamp. I mean, solar lamp is such a simple device. It doesn't require a professor from IITB to actually get into it. But then I realized that everybody is doing solar lamp, but nobody is actually making a solution, permanent solution. And therefore I got into the whole thing. So therefore, yes, acceptance is an issue, but more reliable solution and products we provide to people, greater will be the acceptance. And therefore that's why I said skillful people are required. Though it appears simple, but still we need a skill we actually can design. For example, I have designed a campus in Madhya Pradesh called Education Park. It's a school 14-acre campus. From 2010 till today, it is running 100% on solar energy. No electricity connection ever taken. What I'm saying is, if you design properly, it can work very nicely.
Okay, sir.
And
So,
it works very nicely. It will increase the acceptance also.
mhm. Sir, on the similar lines, there a question by Arvind Kejriwal. So he asked that, okay, so first thing is social acceptance, but if we are moving ahead with the energy Swaraj, taking the energy to the ground roots of rural level, so there will be some opposition from the discoms in large scale adoption of solar energy as well. And the government is also reluctantly, just a second. The government is also pushing for international acceptance, international collaboration. So, will it hinder the concept
Yes,
of energy
I
Swaraj?
mean, yeah, that's a good point and a good understanding also, that yes, as we push for energy Swaraj, it is going to take a kind of a business from the discoms,
Mm,
and there is a good chance that they will oppose it. But that's why the whole idea of Swaraj is be locally self-sufficient, and you're not
mhm,
dependent on anybody, right? And suppose you and our campaign, that story is about surrendering electricity connection. We do not even talk about the grids at all. We do not say microgrid, picogrid, this grid, that grid. So when we go by that, then it's perfectly your choice to go, generate your own energy. And there is Electricity Act 2003 which allows people to generate their own electricity also, legally. So no problem. Yes, so there'll be challenges, will definitely be there, and but it's very common. I mean, because people have invested a lot of money, they will have. In fact, many people. That's why the solar solution, the industrial electricity
mm,
rates are about 9 rupees, 10 rupees, 8 rupees, and the solar electricity rates about 4 rupees, 5 rupees. But they made the law in such a manner that industrial people, everybody easily cannot shift to solar. So yes, that is a problem, and we need to face it. I mean, there cannot be any shortcut to that.
Okay. So my next question, what is your opinion about subsidies? Like, are they really helpful or does it have an opposite effect?
Subsidies are the biggest curse in the solar industry, I would say, renewable in general, because one thing is very clear, that no amount of subsidy can ever in any country reach out to everybody, right? Because
Yeah.
subsidies are limited by the funds available to the government, and those are very small funds. And when the subsidies are given, it is given for 5,000 people, 10,000 people, 1 lakh, 5 lakh people. But India is a country of billion people. And therefore, no matter what, government can never provide subsidy to all. On the other hand, what it does is it actually creates a problem or the psyche in the people's mind that I will get benefits someday. And that day never comes. So it's a biggest curse, and it should stop as soon as possible.
Okay. So, sir, few days back only, government of India launched Asia's largest solar power plant recently. So, like, what is your take on that? Like, government is more pushing the solar energy as a whole in our country, or let's say the renewable energy.
See, as I said, I keep saying not to the government officers, and I told the same thing to Minister of New and Renewable Energy also, that look, it is good, but it is not great. So good in a way, India is pushing for renewable energy, so that itself is a good thing, because it actually brings some independence to us. But at the same time, making this big centralized power plant is not the right model. So for example,
Mhm.
when new technology comes, we discard the old technology. And I believe that the grid integration or supplying electricity by the grid is an old technology. So in communication, earlier we used to communicate through wires. We used to put the cables everywhere, and then the landline connection. But now with the technology, we have removed those wires and we have become wireless. So I believe that in solar also, the best way for the country to generate jobs, to strengthen the local economy, to create confidence, make in India, skill India, all kind of efforts will become fruitful if it is wireless electricity or the off-grid solar electricity. Then I think we will get the real benefit, and then it will become great. But right now it is
Mhm.
just good.
Yes, sir. So there's a question by Ayush Jan. So he asked that everyone, like in the near future, everyone will not stop using air conditioners or refrigerators all at once. So they would uh, definitely require an alternative. So what are the alternatives, or does it require the change of living standards?
Well, I mean, it's very clear that there is enough in the world for everybody's need, not for the greed. So now, because you have learned to use refrigerator in last 25 years, I mean, before, look at the thousands of years of history, there are no refrigerator. So the best solution is avoid using energy if you can. If not, there are alternatives where you can run refrigerator, air conditioner, everything you can run on solar. So all those solutions are available.
Like, for example, I guess for instead of using air conditioner, we can go for passive techniques for making.
We can go for, I mean, there are many techniques available. As I said, the air conditioner are the thing of last 5 years. Refrigerator are the things of last 20 to 25 years. They were not there before, and we used to live, right? So this is really technologies which we feel good, but in long term we are going to suffer from it, and should be avoided if you can avoid it. And in fact, I've been saying that many people tell me that sir, वो नहीं करेंगे, बंद नहीं करेंगे. And if you look at the data, we can summarize the whole situation is either karo or maro. I mean, that is what it is right now. तो नहीं करेंगे तो मरेंगे, क्या करेंगे अभी?
Yes, sir. So, sir, we will take two more questions now.
Yeah.
So, there's a question by Anjali Gupta that how can we as students can spread awareness about the solar swaraj among the rural community as whole?
So first of all, Anjali, let us understand that solar energy Swaraj is not for the rural areas only, right? The energy Swaraj should be adopted by those who can afford it. The energy Swaraj should be adopted by those first who are polluting more. So the people in the towns and the urban area are the bigger polluter than the people in the rural area. And people in the rural area also has a lower paying capacity. So therefore, let us not push the energy Swaraj first in the rural area.
Mhm.
Also, let us not push the energy Swaraj in the metros where the space is a problem, right? But in between, there is a 60 to 70% population right now living in towns and B tier and C tier cities. I think those areas where we should start this campaign of energy Swaraj. And the best way to do that is, as I said, become the volunteer, start talking about it. As I said, our best major campaign is asking people to surrender electricity connection. Get one person agree to that, and we will provide them 100% solution. We means some local entrepreneur will provide the solution. And already there is a list of people right now who are now already ready to surrender connection. And Corona is actually not allowing my movement, but there are already people who are doing that. And I think right now, what you can do is start from your home. If you can convince your parents, let us stop connection. I mean, stopping a connection and surrendering connection is a very, very great kind of say news in your own area, in your relatives, your friends, your town. Everybody will get surprised. What is happening? What is this guys are doing? So I think the let the good work start from ourselves. If not, we are surrendering. Let us minimize it. How can I avoid using this? How can I avoid using that? Let us say when you sit for study in a solar lamp only. I mean, do that is very little thing. Few hundred rupees
Mhm.
a solar lamp can do that. So decide that as a student, I am not going to be part of the pollution. I will be part of the solution. If not, your dad will not allow. Actually study in a solar lamp, and then your dad will see. Okay, one day they'll say, okay, let me do something. So then you start putting all your lights on the solar, putting all your fans on solar. So one thing is you can just surrender connection and go 100% on solar. That is great. If not, slowly you can actually start shifting to solar one by one. But before do that, follow the MG principle. Avoid use of energy if you can. That is the best
Mhm.
contribution that you can do. All right, the last question.
Yes, sir. So there's a question by Adish Shognani. He asked that what are your views on emerging PV technologies like organic photovoltaics and perovskite solar cells?
Well, I mean, organic and perovskites, they are good. I mean, once upon a time, organic was a great potential. Now we know that almost 20, 25 years have gone, and it is very clear that they cannot beat silicon, because they cannot give the stability of silicon, they cannot give high efficiency like silicon. So organic, definitely, I don't see at all coming in future. Perovskite in the last 5 to 8 years have shown a great potential because they can be manufactured at a lower cost. But again, stability in the long run is a big problem. Um, Anything to compete with silicon is going to be extremely low probability, in real commercial terms, because silicon has a very established infrastructure. A lot of people have invested money, so they are going to push it. And because silicon faces a challenge from other technologies, silicon people have been investing a lot of money in the research of silicon itself. As I said, they are very close to the ideal efficiency. So yes, I mean there are good emerging technology. Organic, I think I don't see a chance. Perovskite, there is a chance, and we'll have to wait and watch how the stability kind of improves over a period of time. So even if it is a short-lived cell or panel, it's great. If it is a throwaway price.
Mhm. Yes, sir. So this
Okay.
takes us to the end of the session.
Chetan sir, I have few questions which came to me little late on the pre-talk questions. There are two more interesting questions. Is it okay if we have those two questions?
Okay,
They
let's
are
take
very
them
short.
quickly.
Surya S has asked कि the policies the international conflict due to the international conflict, government are reluctant to shift to sustainable development. What are
Hmm.
your takes on that?
So, I mean, so that's very clear. I told that no government, no policy, no subsidy can actually solve the problem of climate change. I'm 100% crystal clear that governments are elected for 5 years and 4 years. They are very there for a very short time. They have a lot of commitments already made in their election portfolios. And therefore, all government, not our government or US government, every government on the planet is busy fulfilling those promises, right? But the climate change requires a long-term thinking. And therefore, I am very clear in my mind that no amount of government action or the policies or the subsidies is going to make a climate change mitigation effort successful. And therefore, when I say energy swaraj movement, एक energy swaraj आंदोलन करना है, उसका मतलब ये है कि आम आदमी इस बात को समझे और फिर उसमें इन्वेस्ट करें अपने बच्चों के फ्यूचर के लिए. Forget about anything else or good for anything and society and climate. Forget it. If you are not going to do that, a normal common man is not going to do that. Their children are going to suffer and get scared from various events that takes place. So therefore, it is very clear to me from my 20 years of experience in the research, working with the government, working with the ministries, international collaborations. It is very clear that it is out of the scope or the reach or the capacity of any
Yes.
government or policy.
Yes. Okay. And also, sir, there is one more interesting question by Jahangir.
Mhm.
So, what are
Mhm.
like graphing panels are like introduced in the market? Is it currently being researched? And as a material science student, I am also interested to know what are the use of graphene in solar panel, or how long this technology will take to come into market.
Okay, second question first. Typically, any technology takes minimum 20 years to come to the market, minimum.
Okay.
And I have first-hand experience. I have developed some technology during my PhD. We had 3 US patents granted in 2002, 2003. There were companies who were working to commercialize it. I have visited those companies, but I never saw those panels in the market. Because once you do the research, then you need to develop the machines appropriate to that. The machines have to be cost competitive, then you will not get the scale, then market is not there. So a lot of bottlenecks that are there. So that's why if at all it becomes successful, which itself is a very rare chance, few percent chance, it takes still 20 years to come to the market. And graphene
Are
is
graphene technologies that promising to like change the solar?
I don't think so, because graphene is a not as an absorber. Graphene is a material that can be used for some kind of anti-reflection or conducting layers, which has a limited scope. There are already material that exist, if not as good property as graphene, but kind of similar properties or little poor properties. So it is not just the property of the material. As I said, eventually the cost and the production capability or production viability of that material determines whether they will become commercial or not.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. There are a few more questions, but we couldn't have it right now in this time. But
Yeah, I
we'll
think
arrange
I
it.
also need to go for another call at 5:30. So thanks a lot, everyone. I
Yeah,
believe
yeah.
that you got the message, what is required, and let us not be parrot. Let us start implementing in our life. Let us start working towards Energy Swaraj, and go to the website energyswaraj.org and become the volunteer. I would definitely need support from the young people to really make it successful. And as I said, from today onwards, my 24/7 is for the Energy Swaraj. So I have taken a leave from IIT Bombay, unpaid leave. And therefore, anything, anytime, if it is required where I can do something or contribute something, I will always be happy to connect with you guys.
Thank you so much, sir. Also, if
Thank you, sir.
anyone has any genuine question, you can contact the sir with the email.
Yeah, you can send me email and I'll try to respond. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks everyone,
Thank you.
and be happy, enjoy. And when you're happy and when you're good and fresh in the mind, then only you can do the good work. So make sure that at the mind level, you're always happy. All the best.
Thank you, sir.